All right, so um, I know for some of you, you're probably experienced when it comes to tier two reporting, and maybe you're here just for a refresher, and then some of you on here may not be familiar with it at all. You've never had to do it before. Either way, the intent of this webinar is to just be a very cut and dry, regardless of your level of knowledge. But if you don't even know what a tier two report is, just to kind of give you a basic idea in a nutshell, uh, they're required by the EPA, and it's through the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, 1986. And the whole purpose of it is to help communities across the US plan for chemical emergencies that might happen on site at facilities somewhere in the US. And so, as required by the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, you've got to submit tier two reports when you're storing any hazardous chemical in quantities equal or greater than 10,000 pounds or the threshold planning quantity of the EHS, extremely hazardous substance chemical that you have. Don't get too caught up on the acronyms and phrases I'm using now. We'll talk more about that as we're going through the walkthrough. But we're going to go on ahead and get started now with the tutorial of how to submit the tier two report. So the screen we're on right now, this is the online tier two manager. And hopefully by now you've already got an account set up. If you don't worry about it. You can always get an account set up after the webinar is over. But please do not try and copy in this URL link that you see at the top. This is actually our development side of Tier 2 Manager, so you won't actually be able to create anything. It's all a test system. But Amanda Horner, the LAPC program manager at IDHS, she's running the chat right now, and she's going to post in the correct URL link that you can use to sign up for an account. As we're going throughout this tutorial, if you have any questions, feel free to type it into the chat, and Amanda will answer the question as she sees it. And if your question doesn't get answered right then on the spot, don't worry about it. We'll have a brief Q&A session afterwards, and we can get those questions answered then. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So once you get to the home login page here, we're obviously going to log in. And this is going to be the first page that you're brought to. It's the home page screen. And you'll see up here, regulations is what it says at the top. Welcome to the online tier 2 manager. This whole big chunk of text, this is the basic message that you're going to receive every single time you log in. So even after you have already submitted your tier 2 report, this is still going to be the same message that you're going to get every single time. Right now, our system has not switched over to the 2021 annual tier 2 report. That will be done on January 1st, 2022. So you're going to see a lot of older messaging like submit a 2020 annual report. Just ignore that for right now. We're focusing on 2021s. So the first thing that we're going to go on ahead and do to submit our report is to list the facilities. So I went ahead and created a fake account called Casey's Chemicals, and this account has one facility attached to it, which is also identified as Casey's Chemicals. For those of you that manage and oversee multiple facilities, you're probably going to have a much bigger list of facilities that you'll have to report for. Some of you may only have one, and that's fine too. But in order to access the reports for those, we're just going to click on the name of the facility. And it'll bring us to this page here. And it gives us a list. Right now, I have no reports submitted for this fake account, but if there were, all of the previous tier 2 reports would show up under this section here. It also lists 302 and 311 reports. We'll go into details about those in just a couple of minutes. But starting off, all we'll do is hit add a new annual /revision/update report. Then it's going to take us to this screen here. by default, it's automatically gonna have it set at the tier 2 report. That's what we're looking for. To kind of give you an idea, 302 reports and 311 reports are also going to need to be completed. The good news is those reports you can do after you're finished with your tier 2 report, and it pulls information that you've already entered into your tier 2 report for those other 2 different reports. So makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, just to kind of give you an idea, a brief explanation of what a 302 report is. You have to fill out a 302 report every time you have an EHS chemical that is more than the threshold planning quantity. The threshold planning quantity for each chemical is decided by the EPA, and there is a handy dandy list called the list of lists. We'll talk about that closer towards the end, but that's how you're able to determine what the threshold planning quantity is of your chemical. 311s are kind of the same thing, but they require facilities to have safety data sheets, also known as SDSs. And basically, those are what help LEPCs, local emergency planning committees, and fire departments when they need quick information for your facility if an accident of some type were to occur on site at your facility. God forbid that would ever happen. But for this purpose, we're going to go ahead and stick with the tier 2 report. And down here where it says choose a report class, we're going to want to select this. So annual for, again, it's stuck at 2020. When the system updates on January 1st, we're going to have that 2021 option, and that's what you're going to want to go with. But for the sake of the webinar, we're just going to stick with this for right now. And then real quick, there's 2 options down here at the bottom, revision and update. So both of those you can access and take advantage of once you're done submitting your report. And really for revisions, let's say that you make a mistake while you're doing your tier 2 report, you've already got it submitted. Revisions, you can go in, update that information, and it'll automatically correct it for you. You don't have to pay for revisions, and the same goes for updates. So updates are more like if you have any points of contact for your facility that changes that you had originally in your tier 2 report, or if you've had chemical quantities or locations change around on site throughout a reporting year, you can go back in and update your report to reflect that. The good news is both of those are free. You can do as many revisions and updates as much as you want. You don't have to pay for those. So now that we've got those settings selected, let's go ahead and proceed into our report. All right. So once you get into the main page for the report, it's going to bring you to this. And you'll notice up at the top, we've got steps 1 through 7. And those are the different steps that we're going to do to officially complete and submit the report. You'll notice next to step 1, there's a green check mark. When you see a green check mark next to the different steps, that means you've already completed the step, you've filled out all the necessary information. If you see an orange circle with the exclamation point, that means that there is a section that still needs to be filled out within that, and it is not complete. So we need to have all the green check marks before we can officially process our report. So starting off, and just a little quick feature, it's really helpful once you get further down into your steps. If you ever need to just quick jump to a step, all you got to do is just click on it. It takes you straight to it. Quick and easy. So step 1, reviewing facility information. This is actually pulling information that you've already entered in for your facility when you got it set up, your account set up originally. So I have all of my information in here for Casey's Chemicals. Ideally, this information should already be correct, but I do encourage you to use step 1 as a good opportunity to just verify that all the information that you have is correct and accurate. If it's not, All you have to do is come up to the right-hand side here, click Edit, and it'll give you the option to go on ahead and just fill in that information, update it, and correct it as needed. So I'm okay with that. Everything's good with my information. So let's move on to step 2. Step 2 is that's going to be the where you actually put in your chemicals that you're going to have on site and list. And in order to do so, what we're going to do is come up to the top here where it says Add Chemicals. And it'll bring us to this screen here. So starting off on the left-hand side, there's a section over on the left called CAS number. That's the number that's assigned to the chemical that you've got on site. If you don't know what the CAS number is, you can undo /A like so. The system will recognize that and read it. But just to give you an example, anhydrous ammonia is a very common chemical that is stored on site at facilities in Indiana. To look it up a little bit easier, if you just want to go where it says search by CAS/chemical name, just click on that. And then if you do happen to know what the CAS number is, so for example, anhydrous ammonia is this, it's going to pop up here like that. And it auto-populates those two fields for you. That's probably the easiest way to do it. I would encourage you to do that. If it doesn't pop up in this list here, that's okay. You don't have to have the CAS number, just put /A and then just type in whatever your chemical name is. For the sake of this webinar, though, I'm going to actually do a more frequently reported chemical, and that's batteries, sulfuric lead acid batteries. So these are really common in facilities. If you have a forklift, that's a battery. It has an EHS substance in it, like sulfuric acid. And depending on the amount that you have on site, how many batteries you have on site, that's going to be something you might have to report in your Tier 2 report. A lot of people get hung up on that, though, because a battery is obviously not just sulfuric acid, which is EHS. It's also got lead in it, too, which is not an EHS thing, extremely hazardous substance. So I'm going to walk you through how to do that. As we're going through all of this, it's the exact same for any other chemical that you're doing. So what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and type that. Since there's really not a thing in our list here, I can show you briefly. Sulfuric acid will pop up, of course, but there's not really anything in there for batteries necessarily. So what we're going to do is just type /A and then type in sulfuric lead acid batteries. And then down here for the notes section, just type in just a brief description of what it is. So in this case, just so we know, it's batteries. Over here on the right-hand side, physical and health hazards. So you basically just check all of the ones that, that could be hazardous for the chemical that you're dealing with. So in the case of sulfuric lead acid batteries, there's definitely going to be, corrosion to metal. We'll go with that, I guess, for now. And then underneath that is health hazards. Again, it's kind of the same thing. So we'll say for this example, an aspiration hazard, and then respiratory or skin sensitization. And then, all right, just give me just a minute. It looks like we've got some more people in the lobby. There we go. And then Once we're done with this right-hand side here and we've got all of our physical and health hazards picked out, we come on down to the chemical state. So because it's, a battery, we'll go with liquid. And then you'll notice here underneath that MSDS/SDS, that kind of goes back to the safety data sheets that we were talking about before with the 302, 311 reports. So if you have that information on hand, this would be the option where you could upload them. You just hit choose file and it gives you the prompt to where you can select your type of document for it. That's not a required field though, but it is nice. It's helpful if you do have it. It does help us. And then for chemical format, so since we're dealing with a battery, it's mixture. If you're dealing with just a cut and dry chemical, like anhydrous ammonia or chlorine, then you would hit pure. But for our sake, we're going to be doing mixture. And so if you're also doing a mixture for your reporting, it's going to ask you, does the mixture contain an EHS? So for our example, it does. Sulfuric acid is an extremely hazardous substance. So we're going to hit yes. After that, it brings us down to where we can actually add in the chemical components for the battery. So now we're going to break it down. So search by CAS or chemical name. We'll just type in sulfuric acid. There's our option. And then it auto-populates the CAS number for us. Maximum amount percentage. So since this is a battery, if you are reporting batteries, the best option to figure out the percentage of like how much sulfuric acid is in the battery, you can check the packaging or the actual battery case itself. It sometimes lists those percentages. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't, you can always call the manufacturer for the battery itself, and they should be able to provide you that information. But for the sake of our exercise here, let's just do 25% sulfuric acid. And we're going to go on ahead over on the right here, save mixture component. So it was added successfully. We'll come back down and then notice how it's already put it into the mixture component list for us. So now we've got to do the other. So lead. There it is, right up at the top. And then this is not an EHS, so we don't need to click on that. The maximum amount percentage, we'll do 70%. So I left out the that other 5%. Since it's a battery, there's going to be additional miscellaneous chemicals in that likely will not need to be reported at all. So I'm just going to consider that extra 5% that we're leaving out as that unnecessary component. So again, all we're going to do is hit save mixture component. And there we go. It auto-populates for us down at the bottom. So once we've got all that set up, everything looks good up at the top, we're going to go on ahead and hit save. Right down here at the bottom. And it's going to take us to this next tab over. It took us from chemical description. Now we're at inventory and storage. So this is more of a section that's going to detail like how much you're keeping on site, what type of container you're using, and that's kind of what it's going into detail. There we go. So maximum daily amount. The maximum daily amount is the largest number of the chemical that you're reporting that you could have on site at one time. So for this example, I'm going to go with 10,000. But for you, in your case, when you're doing your reporting for your chemical, you're going to want to figure out, what's the maximum amount that you're going to have, that you're able to have on site. Similarly, the average daily amount is kind of similar, except that it's the daily amount that you do have on site each day throughout the year. So some of this stuff I understand you're probably not going to know specifically. You may not know the exact number, and that's fine. That's completely fine. We always encouraged people to over-report. It's better to be safe than sorry. It's not going to look bad on your reporting at all. But for the safe bet on this, we're going to go with 10,000. And then number of days on site. This is just how many days do you have this particular chemical on site for the given year. If you don't know, it's 365. That's a safe bet. For this example, we're going to go with that as well, since batteries are usually on site throughout the year. But for your chemical, just get a good guesstimate of just how frequently it's going to be on site throughout the year. So coming down to the bottom here, storage location. It's going to ask you, it's going to go into detail through the drop-down box, just what type of storage vessel is containing your chemical. Whole wide variety. If you don't have the option that pops up, like in our case here, there is no battery option, you can just choose other. For pressure and temperature, we'll say ambient pressure, ambient temperature. And then since we chose other for our container type, it's going to come down and just have us explain, well, what type of container is it? We'll just put in battery. The storage location. This is kind of an open-ended question. Doesn't give you a drop-down box or anything like that. So for this example, it's just a brief description. Where are you keeping these batteries at? So we'll say something along the lines of first floor utility storage closet, something like that. Just a brief description. Again, this is going to help fire departments and local emergency planning committees. They're the ones that are involved when it comes to hazmat response. LEPCs not specifically, but fire departments, they're the first responders that will be coming in. So that type of description is very helpful to kind of give them an idea of where it's located at. And then storage location max, the daily amount. So again, it's kind of similar to what we talked about up at the top here, the maximum daily amount, but this time it's mostly concerned with storage. So for our example, we're going to go with, just again, 10,000. And so just double checking, making sure our stuff's correct. Once you've got all of that and you're feeling comfortable with what you have, just hit save. And there we go. So step 2, our green check mark at the top shows we've completed it. And if we look at our list here, it has added sulfuric lead acid batteries to our chemical list. And if you want to edit this checkbox right here, you just click on that where it says edit. It lets you go back and do that as needed in case you may have made a mistake. And so, yeah, if you, let's say, maybe you made a mistake, it was the wrong chemical, this trash can option here says delete, it just completely deletes it for you out of that, and then you can go back in and create the correct one. So now that we've actually got our chemicals put in, we're now at step 3. And this one is, it goes back into detail about what the 302s mentions that again. It also mentions something called CAA section 112R, and then you'll notice in parentheses it has RMP next to that. That stands for Risk Management Plan. And that is actually something that you will be working on with the EPA, the US EPA. We don't really have any involvement with those at all, and so we won't be going over that at all in this tutorial. If you are required to submit a risk management plan, you feel free to send us an email and we can get you connected with the right point of contact over at the EPA for that. And then 313 is the same thing. Don't worry about that. For this webinar, again, I believe that's also handled through the EPA. And if you do have questions, we can get with you afterwards, get that figured out. So in this case, we're going to go on ahead, hit edit up at the top. And by default, this section is always going to be highlighted, yes, by default, since we're doing a tier 2 report. And same goes for 302. It kind of grays it out. For the RMP, again, we're not going to be dealing with this, so we're just going to hit no. 313s are also no. And these fields down here, we're not going to worry about those for this. They're not required at all, but if you wanted to add that information in, it is helpful, but it's not required for the tier 2 report. We're just going to hit save. We've got our green check mark up at the top. And so we'll move on to step 4. This is going to ask you for points of contact for your facility. So facility and owner/operator contacts, and then it's going to ask you for regulatory and emergency contacts, and we'll go into details a little bit about those as the questions pop up. So once you hit edit, this is actually pulling information that you had already put down for your facility, kind of like in step 1. So it's going to auto-populate this. You want to make sure that this information is correct, obviously. So whoever the owner or your operator is for the facility, you want to make sure it's their information that you're putting in, or just the best point of contact for that. Just hit save. And then that was for the first one. We're going to do the same thing in step 4 for the regulatory and emergency contacts. So we'll come over, hit edit. So regulatory point of contact, this is going to be the person that you're going to want to put down that is knowledgeable about what you're putting into your tier 2 report. So if you're the person doing all the work for the tier 2 reporting for your facility, you're probably going to want to be the point of contact, put in your information. If you click on this pick regulatory point of contact hyperlink, it's going to pull up a whole different list. For this example, I'm just going to put my own information, and it auto populates like that. You'll notice here, got a normal looking phone number, and then for our 24-hour phone number, it's 555-55555. Doing that, obviously, since this is a tutorial, but for you, when you're doing your tier 2 report, this phone number is very important for us. It's going to be basically, it's the phone number first responders are going to be using if something were to happen to your facility. It's overnight, they need to get in contact with you. Pick a phone number that they're going to be able to get in contact you with no matter what. Coming down to the emergency planning coordinator, this is a little bit more specific, but you want to pick somebody, again, at your facility who's going to be knowledgeable on this particular topic. It could be you again. It could be somebody different. A lot of times facilities will have 3 or 4 different people that are involved in their tier 2 reporting process. If your facility is like that, then you're going to want to, this is the opportunity for you to distinguish that. And if not, if you just want to continue to put your name for it, that's fine too. For the sake of the webinar, I'm going to do that. And then emergency contacts. So these are going to be 2 additional people. It's going to ask for 2. Again, points of contact that can be used to contact people at your facility in case something goes wrong. It's good for us to have 2. You know, obviously, just 1 may not be good enough. It could get sent to voicemail. So That's why we're asking for 2. Same goes for email. Again, I'm just going to fill in my info for it. But for you, make sure you're choosing good points of contact that can be relied upon. Okay, so once we verify our info is complete, you just go ahead and hit save. And step 4 up at the top, looks like we've got our green check mark. And you'll notice now too, it's listing out who we had listed as our point of contacts. You realize, oh, this person, they're not going to be our person anymore. You just go on ahead and hit delete, and you can go back in, or you just hit the edit button. You can go in and change it this way as well, however you prefer to do it. So we'll go ahead and move on to step 5. Step 5 is going to ask for the what's called a site plan. And I'm going to go on ahead and actually pull up a different screen now. Give me just a second. So this is a copy of our Tier 2 site plan guide. And this is a guide, kind of gives you an overview of what we're looking for when it comes to you making your site plan guides and submitting them for your Tier 2 reports. Don't worry, this is going to be sent out along with some other resources through email at the end of the webinar. So you'll all get a copy of this. But it just gives you some general instructions as well as just what we're looking for. There's also 2 examples, 2 mock examples of what your site area map might look like. So this first example, they have just an overview of their facility layout. They've got exits labeled. They've got the storage locations for the chemicals over here in the yellow, outside storage tanks. Just kind of it's like a blueprint, essentially, is what you're going to want to make for your facility. They've got street names over here. Street names are really helpful for the fire departments. They're going to have access to your site plan guide, and if a fire were to happen on site at your facility, they're going to be able to see those street names. It helps them get a better visual idea of what they'll be walking into. If you scroll down, there's another example, a little more basic example of a site plan. But again, it's outlining the same exact approach. We've got the street name up at the top. There's an overview layout of where the chemicals are at, as well as the exits. These are both really good examples, very basic examples of what we're looking for your site plan guide for your Tier 2 report. And the way that it's going to do it, let me switch back over to our screen. There we go, and I see there's a few more people that have joined us. Let me add them in. Okay, so once you've got your site plan all set up, it's just a simple choose your file and upload it. So file formats, this is a pretty common question. What type of file format will we accept, or will the system Tier 2 manager accept? Right now, as it is, it takes JPEG, BMP, PNG, and JPG file formats, so just images. That's what you can upload. For the sake of this webinar, we're going ahead and upload just a random image that we've got here. So puppy. It's just a picture of a puppy, but that's what we'll upload, and that's how it looks. Once you've got that set up, you can hit save. That's the only required field. I do want to point out as well, sometimes your county or your LEPC might ask for a little additional information about your facility. They do have the right to do that. And if you need to submit that information to them for your Tier 2 report, or if they ask for that, Down here at the bottom, it says Facility Emergency Response Plan. That would be the section that you could upload that additional info to. So that's just good to point out just in case. So we'll hit save. We have officially completed step 5. We've got our site area map pulled up, the puppy. Now we're ready for step 6. Step 6 is it's a short and sweet step. It just asks you, we'll go over to edit again. So is the facility a federal, state, or local government facility? The reason why it's asking us this is because this is the fee exemption questionnaire. If you are a federal, state, or local government facility in Indiana, you don't have to pay the fee. If you are a farm in Indiana, you also don't have to pay. If you're a farm and you have, sometimes it's not uncommon for anhydrous ammonia sometimes, or some lesser known things that are commonly kept, chemicals that are kept on farms. Farms technically do not have to report Tier 2 reports, but we encourage them to. Again, it's very helpful for first responders to know in case something were to happen, God forbid. But for our example, we're just going to hit no. We are not either of those. We are not a farm. We'll just hit save. And then we've got our green check mark again for step 6, brings us to step 7. So step 7, we're almost there. It's telling us you're almost done. It gives us the submit report feature. You hit continue. This is where it takes you to your fee summary. So reporting fee, the rate's going to be $100. And since we've got that one, that's our fee for it. You're going to notice here it says late fee. The reason why it's telling us late fee right now is because the system is still stuck in the 2020 mode. It hasn't switched over to 2021 yet for the 2021 reporting. So it thinks it's also throwing on a late fee. But when you're doing it to submit your report, it won't do that to you, at least not until March 1st. Tier 2 reports do need to be submitted by March 1st. Otherwise, it is going to tack on a late fee. But for this, once we're ready to go, you just hit pay now. It's the blue button. And then it's going to give us our option where we the due amount and then select payment option. We'll hit continue. Continue again. And it takes a little bit to load, but it should pull you up to this screen right here. And this is actually the payment portal where you're going to be submitting your payment info, pay for the Tier 2 report. We've had people ask in the past, do I have to pay electronically? Could I pay with check? The answer is yes, you can do that. The process is a little bit different, and if that's something that you would prefer to do, just reach out to us after the webinar and we can definitely help you get that set up so you can do that. For the sake of this webinar, I will not be submitting any fake info. So I'm just going to go on ahead and hit continue. It'll let me do it. No, I got to submit it. All right, we'll just hit back. Here we go. Takes us back to our home page. So it gives us this green check mark, even though we didn't technically pay for it. The system, even if you walk through the payment portal, it's still going to think that you paid, even though you didn't. So that's why it is showing a green check mark for that. It's going to give you, after that, we now have a new option, step 8. Step 8 is the certification step. And I'm aware of some facilities, they actually have a designated position, a person that is set to certify this. You may not have that, and that's okay. It's not showing it right now, but there's going to be buttons at the bottom where it's going to ask you to certify it. It's just a blue button that appears. You hit certify, and then it will take you through the prompt where it's officially certified. Once you do that, your Tier 2 report is officially submitted to us. I want to point out, it will not be submitted to us until you actually do certify this. So please, 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 before March 1st comes around, once you've got all of your stuff set up, you are going to want to make sure step 8 up here at the top has that green check mark, because that will confirm that you have actually submitted it to us. I do not want anybody to have to go through an additional late fee just because they forgot about that. So please, please, please just double check that you've got that. But once that's done and over with, it's going to pop up on your facilities list again, going back. There it is, there's ours. Now, for our status, it says initiated, but that's only because we didn't go through step 7 and 8. But yours, it'll say completed, and it'll have all this info filled in for whoever did it. This is also the option 2, where let's say you accidentally made a mistake and you need to make a revision or an update like what we talked about earlier. That's the option where you can do that too. And so that's basically it when it comes to submitting a Tier 2 report in Tier 2 Manager. It's a very simplistic process, but it does have its quirks. So if at any point you're going through it and you feel like you have no idea what's going on, you can reach out to myself or Amanda. We both operate the SARA Tier 2 email, and we'll be happy to help walk you through it as needed. But I also want to take a brief moment, and I want to show you the list of lists. Give me just a second, I'll pull that PDF up. But this is the list I was telling you about that the EPA provides. And it's got all of the extremely hazardous substances, and it also indicates their threshold planning quantity. Oh, I'm told it's not popping up for us. Give me a second, let me try this again. All right. So, okay, looks like we're good now. So what you're going to do is, as you're filling out your chemicals in step 2, this is going to be your handy dandy sheet to help you figure out what that threshold planning quantity is going to be. So earlier we used ammonia as an example. What I like to do with this list is just do that control find feature and just type in actually, we'll just go ahead. Just kind of scroll through the document. It'll eventually bring you to it. For ammonia, it's got a lot to say about it. There we go. So this is the actual list when you start getting into it. Got all of these different ones, and you'll notice that up at the top, it lists the name of the chemical, and then over to the right, talks about the CAS 313 category codes. Those were those additional reports that we were talking about before. The one that you're going to want to look at right for your 312 reports is section 302. This is going to show you that TPQ stands for threshold planning quantity. And each chemical has its own different one. So here we go, anhydrous ammonia. It lists that CAS number that we were talking about before, and it also lists 500. I want to point out this, it doesn't show a unit of measurement here, but the unit of measurement they're going with is pounds. So this is 500 pounds, 10,000, obviously, 1,000. So that's the unit of measurement. It doesn't list that, or it might explain it up in the text, but just so you know, that's what it is. But this is what we use. Amanda and myself, we use this to figure out chemical questions that we get. But this is all put out through the EPA. I will also be sending this in the email along with the site area guide, as well as some additional online resources that might be helpful for you as you're doing your Tier 2 report. But I realize this list is really complex. It lists a lot and it could be overwhelming. If you have any questions about this, please, again, feel free to reach out to either myself or Amanda Horner, and we can get you set on the right track for it. Oh, there's a few more people, looks like. So that's what I have when it comes to the webinar itself. I do want to open up the floor, though, for anybody that might have some quick questions. If anybody does, if Amanda hasn't answered your question, feel free to type that in the chat again and we can get to it. All right, so I'm not seeing any new ones popping up. We're going to go on ahead and stay on this, keep this webinar thread active until 2 o'clock. So we're going to use that as our time frame for Q&A. But okay. If taking over for someone else, the facility is what you would associate with your new login, correct? Yes. So if you're taking over for somebody else, maybe they've left, they've retired, or there's some, and you're the new person, what you're going to want to do is create an account in Tier 2 Manager, submit an account request, and I will go in and approve it. And then we can go on ahead and get, all we would do is transfer the facility data that your predecessor had on their account. You just transfer it over to yours, and then you should be able to manage it from there. And then for some chemicals, the list of lists had two amounts, 100 through 10,000. Yeah, some of those, it's going to vary. Some chemicals vary depending on the circumstance. And it also deals with reportable quantities as well. So the list of lists goes into details a little bit on this. You can read more about it, and I'll also be sending some resources that explain that. But each chemical has its own designated reportable quantity, and that is why it varies like that. Is there a service charge? How do I calculate that when requesting a PO with my company? I don't think there is a service charge for using the system itself. It's just going to be that one flat fee that you're paying, that $100 fee for the Tier 2 report. But when it comes to actually using Tier 2 Manager, there should not be an additional charge for that. But if you do need some type of receipt, if you go to your report, let me actually pull this screen up again. I believe you can actually download an invoice. Let me share it again. Here we go. So if we go back down to step 7, we do pay now. So it says up here at the top, please print your invoice by clicking here. So if you click this button, that's what will give you the option to download an invoice, and you, okay. Right, so I'm told there is a $2 service fee. Okay. Okay. we'll go back through, Amanda and I are going to go back through before the tier 2 season starts off and verify. Yep, somebody's saying $2. Okay, that's good. We're going to verify that that $2 fee is still the case. I don't think the price would have increased at all. But thank you for verifying that. And then, yeah, it would show up as one receipt. So that's a good question. Who in the company is qualified to certify the report? It's up to you. It depends on the facility. Some facilities have just one person. They do it all. Others might have 2 or 3. And it all depends on maybe the person's job position. Their position is specifically for that particular step in the tier 2 reporting process. So that's typically how it is when it comes to certifying it. Yeah, processing fee for the card. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay, one chemical we discontinued on November 2nd and another chemical added on December 5th. Okay, so if this is for your 2020 report, you can actually go on ahead and just do an update. So how we talked about earlier, the revision and then update. Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Yeah. Great explanation. Yes, correct. So in the sulfuric acid example, list of list shows the TPQ for EHS is 500. Yes. So again, it goes back to the reportable quantity and the threshold planning quantity. So like in our sulfuric acid example, that was a very basic one. You probably won't have that much sulfuric acid from a battery or from a bunch of batteries on site. I don't know, maybe you will if you have that much. But yeah, for like normal chemicals that you'd be reporting in tier 2, it depends what the list of lists says. Are there any changes, edits that need to take place when the site switches chemical vendors? Chemical vendors? No, they're not necessary for tier 2 reporting. Correct. Oh, this is for. Is there an option to import data from previous year and edit for the current year? I don't believe there's an option to do that within the tier 2 management system. I believe it actually does do it automatically. So it should do that option for you. That is if you have a report already in the system from before. Discuss sending a copy to the LEPC and fire department. So if you're referring to a copy of anything that you're putting into tier 2 manager, they've actually already got access to it. LEPCs and the fire departments in your facilities area, they also have tier 2 manager accounts. And if they need any of the documentation that you're putting in, they'll just log into tier 2 manager. They can access what you've put in and then download documents from there. Yes, yes, this has been recorded, and we will be putting this up on the IDHS website. It's going to be through YouTube, so you can go back and rewatch everything. That's a good question. So, is there a way for multiple logins to have access to the same facility? The answer is no. Only one login can be attached to a facility at a given time. The reason why is because Tier 2 Manager cannot hold all of those accounts. So facilities would try to have 5 accounts tied to one facility. We just don't have the storage space in Tier 2 Manager for every facility to have that option. So that is why only one person for your facility can have a Tier 2 Manager account. Okay. I tried to log into the Tier 2 Manager and it says my username doesn't match your records. If you want to go on ahead and just email us at that Sarah email address, we can talk with you one-on-one about that and get you fixed up on it. All right, so it looks like the questions are kind of going down a bit. So I think what we're going to go on ahead and do is end the webinar now. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to that email address and we'll get back with you as soon as we can. As a reminder, you won't actually be able to submit if you're really eager, ready to get started to submit your 2021 report. You can't actually do it until January 1st. So if you get it all set up in our system, you can't actually submit that until January 1st. So thank you all for taking the time to come and watch this. I hope it helped. And I'm looking forward to working with you all this season for Tier 2 reporting. Have a great day.